makes it quite amazing that, given the fact that he had charged and jailed beforehand, why he was let out in the first place.
Good question. Michael Packey, thanks for the breaking news.
No problem.
Politics editor Michael Packey.
Drive on 2GB. Have your say. 131 873.
Well, if you've been wondering when the Rozelle Parklands will reopen, don't hold your breath. Because the Environment Protection Authority, I've had a fair bit to say about the EPA, and I know the EPA's been pointing fingers pretty almost happily at a whole bunch of mulch suppliers about this asbestos issue. But I think the EPA's let this just run and run and run for so long that people have been taking advantage of the lack of enforcement. Well, the EPA today has abandoned its own legal deadline for the clean-up of the asbestos at the Rozelle Parkland. So the park will not be open to the people who live around that area for another month. So instead of mine, they've just granted month-long extension until the end. Well, how does that help anyone? Yeah, g'day.
G'day, Chris. How are you?
This is getting farcical.
Well, the EPA is looking like a toothless tiger. John Holland and CPB have simply not put the resources that will clean up this contaminated mulch in time to meet the deadline. Transport for New South Wales haven't been firm enough with these contractors in insisting upon the deadline being met. But now to discover that the environmental regulator, their response is to say, oh, well, there's no consequences to not meeting this order. We won't issue you a fine. We'll issue you an extension instead. I mean, it is very frustrating. And I would like to see a fine issued to Transport for New South Wales rather than just being given more time.
It's interesting because the Environment Protection Authority, you say it's a toothless tiger, doesn't look like it's been using many teeth in policing how asbestos gets into mulch in the first place.
Well, I haven't had a lot to do with the EPA over time, but I would have thought, given this unprecedented asbestos contamination crisis, that like John Holland and CPB, John Holland's owned by the Chinese government, by the way, I would have thought a really high priority was enforcing the law and making sure that they adhere to the deadline for the clean-up of contaminated month. And by the way, that doesn't mean the park will be open in a month. That means that they've set a new deadline for when the contaminated mulch has to be removed. And if they've been this soft with them so far, I'm worried that this will just end up as an indefinite closure of the park.
How long have you been waiting for this thing to open?
For years. And don't forget, John Holland and CPB have been terrible neighbours for the last 5 years in Rozelle and Lilyfield. The former government sort of outsourced all of the complaints about construction impacts from the interchange to John Holland and CPB, and they treated it as a PR issue. So there's zero trust for them in the local community. And I've got to say, Transport for New South Wales are in the same category. Local people just see time after time with contamination in the park, and there's not enough urgency from the transport agency to get these problems fixed, and people are feeling very frustrated about that.
When did you had pushed back the deadline to clean up the mulch?
Late last night. They haven't communicated with us properly about it.
Have you heard from the Environment Minister, Penny Sharp?
Well, I was informed by the Transport Minister's office, by the Roads Minister's office last night that there was going to be an extension granted. We had expected to hear directly from the EPA if they were going to be doing that, and it may have been that there was correspondence that they sent late in the afternoon. But we were forced when we
Penny Sharp's a comrade of yours in the Labor left. Wouldn't she just pick up the phone and say, "Hey, look, Darcy, I'm sorry, but we're just going to have to push it back a month."
I'm not sure exactly how it works in regards to who's got... I know she's the Environment Minister. I'm not sure whether she has statutory authority over the EPA making this decision. Well, I'm not sure if it was her decision, but I'll say this. I've been informed that Josh Murray, as the Secretary of the Department, and Howard Collins, as the Coordinator General of Transport for New South Wales, Howard was dealing with the problems with the Rozelle interchange, and Josh was meant to be fixing the problems with contamination, asbestos contamination in Rozelle Parklands. I think they did a good media conference at the start, but I don't think they've paid enough attention to actually getting these problems fixed. And when you're on the big bucks like them, it's really important that you actually take these things seriously and engage with local communities. Don't just fob them off and treat it as a PR issue.
So are we any closer to finding out when the Rozelle Parklands will actually open? None.
No, look, I'll be straight with you. It could be indefinite. And if John Holland and CPB aren't forced to actually put the staff on the ground to clean up the mulch, well, why would they do it? They've got an inherent interest in cutting costs. Right at the start of the contamination, they said, we'll put 20 or 30 staff on to clean up the mulch. And I said, well, if you put 60 on, could you do it twice as fast? But in reality, Chris, I've been near 30 staff cleaning up the mulch. There's been maybe a dozen on most days. Now, they might be ramping it up now. But if the government's too timid to take it up to these contractors and uphold the public interest, they're not going to do it freely and out of altruism. They're there to make money. They don't care about the Rozelle community.
Darcy Byrne, appreciate your time. I can sense it from the New South Wales Labor government. We'll be listening, so I hope you get somewhere because it's ridiculous.
Appreciate your time.
That's the Mayor of the Inner West, Darcy Byrne, 131873. I told you, the EPA, and you guys told us. We spoke to asbestos removal people that have decades who say they've done tens of thousands of jobs removing asbestos, and they've never been checked by the EPA. They've never been checked. So it's a wonder that the EPA is sitting there almost like at the pulpit of morality. The Green Life Resource Recovery, they're dreadful, these people. We've just got to stop work on it. Well, have you looked at yourselves and your own role in this play? Because nothing is improving. The Environmental Protection Authority, it is not improving. And unless you pull your finger out, we will not be able to get back to normal and have parks and schools and railway stations back to normal as it should be. To be honest, the boss of the EPA, I reckon Penny Sharp, needs to have a really long think about whether or not he is up to staying in his job.
2GB traffic, thanks to Petters, brakes, steering and suspension specialists.
As you cross to me, Chris, looks like we've got a truck breakdown northbound on the Eastern Distributor around Surrey Hills. A reminder, Sackville Ferry, current Eastern Distributor aiming south are averaging 15 kilometres an hour. Old South Head Road west through Bondi isn't great, and New South Head Road busy and Point Piper. I'm Steve Carline with traffic every 10 minutes on Sydney's 2GB.
Petters, Australia's #1 brakes, steering and car suspension specialists. Book your car in today at petters.com.au.
Harvey Norman's Super Thursday. Save over $1,200 on Super King Size LG 86-inch TV. Now $1,788. Acer Aspire Lite laptop with 16 gig RAM. Now just $798. Take a further 10% off already and more. Save up to 40%, up to 25% off carpets and flooring. And super deal. Lusso fabric recliner and footstool just $489. Don't miss